Today, the media is running with a poll which is supposed to show that women are oppressed in the workplace, but instead it manages to prove something else. CNBC reports there's a major confidence gap between men and women in the workplace, though it might not be in the way that you'd expect. A majority, 64% of women, think that they can do their manager's job better than them, versus 47% of men who believe the same, according to a Monster survey of 6,847 workers conducted on February. That perspective doesn't necessarily reflect that women feel proficient in their jobs, but rather that they feel undervalued and overlooked for management roles. According to Monster career expert Vicky Salami tells CNBC, quote, women feel they can do their manager's job, she says, but the frustration is, why aren't they given the opportunity to do it? Why aren't you given the opportunity to do your manager's job? Well, because your manager is doing it. That might be the reason. Do you think your manager should just be fired on the spot so that they can try you out for the role? And even if they do, even if they fire your manager and replace him with a woman, why should you specifically be the woman who takes his place? Would you be satisfied if another woman was promoted and not you? See, actually, it's a statistical certainty that many of the women who said they could do their manager's job better, many of them have managers who are women. So if a woman is promoted over a woman, that's an example of sexism against women? How does this work exactly? See, this is one of the many fundamental problems with the claims of sexism and oppression against women in the workplace. The women who are inclined to make these kinds of complaints will still make them even if their management team is already dominated by women, as it is in many companies. Have you ever known a feminist to say, well, I didn't get this opportunity, but another woman did, and so I'm happy. This is a win for the sisterhood. They might claim to have that attitude, but none of us have ever encountered it in real life. I certainly haven't. So often, when a member of an allegedly marginalized group complains about discrimination, they're really complaining about how they personally have been treated or how they perceive themselves to have been treated. It is a selfish complaint disguised as concern for the group. But then you quickly discover that this person will take no comfort in finding out that other people in the group aren't having those experiences. So when they say, don't treat us this way, what they really mean is, don't treat me this way. And that might seem like an obvious thing to point out, but it's an important distinction because it's a very different sort of complaint. Whether it's true or not that they're being mistreated, and often it's not true, but whether it's true or not, still it's worth noting the nature of the complaint, which is usually personal and self-centered. Bringing it back to women in the workplace, the fact is that women are being promoted, women are getting opportunities, and if anything, in big corporations at least, they're getting more opportunities than men. These companies are actively looking to staff their management teams with anyone other than white males. They have a vested interest in doing that. But the women who still complain about a sexist conspiracy to rob them of opportunities, they aren't likely to take any solace in the fact that other women are in fact getting promoted. That's because, again, the women who say, you're being unfair to women, woman who says that is often really saying, you're being unfair to me. She doesn't really care about women in general. She cares about herself, which is fine. You gotta look out for number one, but at least be honest about it. This is perfectly evidenced by the career expert Vicky in the CNBC article saying that women aren't getting the chance to do their managers' jobs, regardless of the fact that many of these women have managers who are women. It turns out that the women making the complaint don't want a woman to be manager. They want themselves personally to be manager, which again is different. Back to the article. Women are far less likely to say that they feel they get the same quantity and quality of opportunities as men in the workplace. 66% of men believe everyone at work gets the same access to opportunities versus just 23% of women, according to Monster. The opportunities gap has a compounding effect among women at all levels in the workplace. Women say that having a clear vision for the future of their career is a top priority for them, and a lack of potential advancement is the biggest red flag that would lead them to turn down a job offer. So, the poll finds that a majority of women complain that the company they work for is unfair and biased, while also claiming that they can do jobs that they have not been judged qualified for. If you were trying to come up with a poll to convince employers to hire men instead of women, I don't think you could have done a better job than this. Though somehow this poll is supposed to motivate employers in the opposite direction. Like, hey, women are likely to have an inflated sense of importance and also complain a lot. Now hire more of them. That seems to be the sales pitch. And it's not my sales pitch, by the way. I'm not saying that. I'm telling you that's what the survey apparently says. Now, to what extent it actually reflects the opinion of the majority of women, I don't know. That's what the survey says. The article ends this way. Some 77% of men believe everyone is paid the same. Presumably they mean paid the same for the same work. Versus 24% of women. Concerning, given that women say fair and equal wages is the number one most important benefit to them in the workplace. The gender wage gap, which has persisted for decades, now sits at the average woman being paid 82 cents for every dollar paid to a man, according to the Census Bureau. The gap widens for many women of color. Now, of course, we couldn't conclude this without the trusty old wage gap myth. If you're curious, the article supports the women get paid 82 cents for every dollar that a man earns claim by linking to a fact sheet on the census.gov website, which tells us that the median earnings of men are about $57,000 a year. This was back in 2019, while the median for women is around $47,000. These are the numbers that you get if you take all of the men in every profession and throw them into one pot, all of the women in every profession, throw them into another, and then compare the two. But that comparison is totally meaningless, as it obviously doesn't take into account things like hours worked, overtime, experience, skill, effort, qualifications, career choice, etc. It doesn't even bother to compare men and women in the same industry, let alone the same positions within those industries. Instead, it effectively compares, male commercial airline pilots to female hairdressers and male surgeons to female daycare workers and so on. It makes an even one-to-one comparison among all these groups. It is, in fact, a perfect example of how you lie with statistics, because the figure they end up with, 82 cents on the dollar, is technically true if you don't control for any meaningful factors whatsoever. But they never mention that detail when they cite the figure, which makes it effectively a lie. So, what is the real takeaway here? What can we learn from the fact that, according to the survey, a majority of women in the workforce feel that they're being oppressed and being treated unfairly because of their sex? Well, we learn just that it's a feeling. This is what the oppression narrative is ultimately grounded in. It's something that people feel, something that they are indeed encouraged to feel. These are feelings instilled and fostered in them. The poll says that a majority of women believe, they feel, that they aren't getting equal opportunities. Very much in the same way that so many people feel, the wage gap. What we aren't supposed to ever ask is whether these beliefs and feelings actually reflect reality. That's because when we do investigate that question, we will find out very often and very quickly that they just simply don't. And that's why not all women in the workforce, but at least the majority who took this poll, are today canceled.